Aquaba guys, good morning and welcome to yet another pillow talk. It's taken a lot out of me to even come to you with a pillow talk. I'm in a grieving state. 2 weeks ago, I lost my beloved oldest brother, Mark Anthony. He meant a lot to me. And I'm glad he knew that he meant a lot to me. So I just want to, before I get into it, thank God for another day that we haven't seen before. Breathing life into us again another day. I want to thank God that I had 52 years of my life with a loving brother. I thank God for his 60 years. Although to us it wasn't enough, but God is sovereign and he's in control. Mark's homegoing service was beautiful. Nobody had nothing but wonderful things to say about him, and they were all true. They talked about how friendly he was, and my brother was friendly to a fault. There were things about him that annoyed me because he was so nice. He was just beautiful, no matter how much I complained, because I thought people were taking advantage of him. He was just still who he was. He didn't care. Give you a little bit of story. Mark was diagnosed almost 40 some odd years ago after being honorably discharged from the Navy as a paranoid schizophrenic. And if those of you under the sound of my voice don't believe in God, you just ought to. Because the grace that my mother had and her faith never wavered in God, although she was dealt with blows in life. Watching your son have a nervous breakdown, and one of your sons who had so much promise. He wanted to make a career out of the Navy and get educated in the Navy, and he was just so bright. And for all that to be taken away when he lost his mind was just devastating. I don't really have too many memories of him, what they say normal. He got sick when I was in the 4th grade. However, he was loved, and that was my brother, and that's what I knew, and that's what I accepted, and that's what I loved. Last year, my brother was recommended the needle because for so many years he was on this medicine called Haldol and Cogentin for side effects. With the Haldol, he still was tormented by voices. He was still tormented by voices and would still be like arguing and being very combative with the voices and the thoughts that was coming to his head. But with the needle, I had recently said to my mom, feels like I got my brother back. Because he had a sense of normalcy. He wasn't paranoid. He wasn't doing, all that babbling and talking to himself. We was able to have normal relationship. Well, I won't say normal. We was able to have a better relationship without him, stopping and talking to people or talking to the voices, things that I couldn't see. And I said to my mom, I feel like I got my brother back. The needle was wonderful because when he was on the pills, that had to be taken daily, but the needle was once a month. So my brother Michael would take him to the doctors once a month to get his needle. this isn't a sad pillow talk. This is a pillow talk honoring his life and dedicated to him. Yeah, if those of you under the sound of my voice have siblings, love on them. Love on them. Because since this year came in, every month I've known somebody who passed, just a childhood friend I grew up with passed on yesterday. So from January up until now, I've known somebody every month who passed. And I know my brother went to heaven. I know even in his manic state, he knew that the Lord Jesus Christ was Lord and Savior. So I'm grateful for that. I just told my mother with the needle, I just felt like I had my brother back. And the Sunday before his passing, we had such a wonderful fellowship because my brother was a historian and he was talking to us about the history of Haile Selassie and how the Rastafarians thought that he was God. And my youngest daughter came downstairs and was like, Mom, your brother is very smart. I said, yeah, he is. He always been. He was the computer before I purchased the computer because there was times I couldn't help my children with homework. And I was like, oh, let me call Mark. I know he knows the answer. And sure enough, he would know the answer. Um, I celebrate and I'm honored to have been his sister. I'm honored to have been his sister. But back to the reason why his kindness annoyed me because I found that, when you're schizophrenic, you get checks once a month. And, certain people who have like addictions, they would, come around, you get money from them all the time. And I just felt like, as a younger sister, don't be using my brother and all that. But there's other sides to looking at things. And these are people who he known for years and he loved as siblings, although they were just people on the street. Mark was just helping them, even in their times of struggles of drug addictions. And he was just helping them. He was just being himself. So when I realized I couldn't change who he was, it was just like, well, that's just who he is. But I did have to tell some people, you see my brother on the street and you want to ask him for money, so be it. But don't be knocking on my door and banging on my door, like somebody owes you something. Yeah, my brother was just so kind. And he loved family, even when he wasn't comfortable being around people, just knowing that they were there. He lived in his room. And when the Lord called him home, he was in his room. Um, I know I have many more days ahead of me. This death is fresh. Um, but one thing's for sure, we all must go. There's no getting around it. The day you were born and had a birth date, you had a death date. I'm just grateful to God that my brother knew that I loved him. He knew that I loved him. We were normal siblings. He got on my nerves, I got on his nerves. He loved me, I loved him. But there was never a time where Mark and I were at each other's throats or not speaking. We couldn't stay mad at each other. I just loved him. And I accepted him. Even in his manic state, I was upset a lot of the times because when the medications would get him so sick, he would stop taking it. And unfortunately, he would have to be 302. And there were times I would just cry because I felt so sorry for him in his life and had to have been so miserable. And I was often say, God, I couldn't handle what he's going through one day, let alone all these years of being tormented by voices. But God is an awesome God. And even despite all of that, he had sense enough to know that there is a God and that we can't come to him but through his son. He was smart enough to know that. I'm not on here to preach. For those of you who are listening and don't believe, hey, I'm not here to convince you. I'm just here to thank God for my brother. Although I felt like I could have had him longer, God knew best. Um, that's all I had to say. For those of you who have siblings, just appreciate them, love on them. Because 2 weeks ago, I never thought when I came home from work that my brother would be in his room gone. Never, never. And that was last Wednesday. I'm sorry, it was 2 Wednesdays ago. He passed on the 29th of March. The Sunday before he passed, we just had a wonderful time. And the Saturday before, the day before that, my husband and Mark went out. You know, my husband and Mark was very close. He thought of my husband as a brother and not a brother-in-law. To know Mark was to love him. Although his mental status, he was well enough to know that he was sick and would take his medications. The only time he would not is when the side effects was too great. My mother, those of you who are under the sound of my voice and who believe, just continue to keep her in prayer. Yesterday was really hard for her because she tried to go into his room and it didn't go well at all. And then for me to come home from work and the funeral home delivered his ashes and they tried handing it to me and I couldn't. I couldn't. And then I just prayed and then I was able to pick up the ashes. Life is precious when you're around people who love you and you love them. Don't take anybody for granted. Don't waste time with petty differences. No. Especially for people who claim to know who God is. Don't waste your time having petty differences because when people are gone, that's it. You don't have another go around. When they're gone, that is it. So, under the sound of my voice, if there's anybody in your family that you know you love and know love you, but for some odd reason, you guys are not getting along or seeing eye to eye, and you just feel the need to just cut them off, don't be like that. Don't be like that. Because it would kill you if that person left or kill them if you left and they were never to see you again or vice versa. Get it right because life is precious and life is short. Although that's not the story with my brother and I, he loved me and I loved him and we showed each other love. I just wish there was another hug from him, another kiss on the cheek, because he called me Boo Boo. He never called me by my name. I wish I could just see him, smell him, touch him, because I had this thing with touching his hands and saying, "You've never done a hard day's work, your hands are too soft." I wish I could do that again. Although I showed my brother love, I wish that he was still here, that I can do those things. But God forbid if you're not showing each other love and you're being petty, it won't be good on your conscience. So that's all I had to say. Just keep me in prayers. For those of you who listen to me, this is a very hard thing that I'm going through. It's a tough pill to swallow. Um, love on your loved ones. That's all I had to say. Until we talk again, know that I love you guys. Bye-bye.